and welcome to Reportage with Danish bin Nabi. My today's topic is the Chinese incursion in Eastern Ladakh. To discuss about it, I have with me retired colonel and defense analyst Rohit Dev. Mr. Rohit, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, please define briefly how present situation in Eastern Ladakh is different than of 1962.
Danish, I will tell you in all realms. To start with, let's start with the lowest realm, which is the military realm. In the military realm, firstly, the operational preparedness of our forces is much better. Our ability to move our reserves from uncommitted sectors has been demonstrated for the first time, and that you have seen from where all our reserves have moved. The application of the Air Force, the air arm, has been absolute. You have C-130 carriers which are able to take a lot of load to the region, to divert troops, to divert material. We have a plethora of helicopters there now, which are medium and heavy lift capability helicopters. You have attack helicopters operating there. You also have mechanized forces. For the first time, we have been able to push mechanized forces in areas of Depsang and other areas where they are having a lot of utility in terms of operational overtones. And also, if you see, we have been a little more divergent in our approach, and maybe at the lower level and not properly stamped by the military establishment, the lower functionaries there have taken it upon themselves that we will be able to thwart the Chinese designs along the LAC, which happens at small engagements or smaller skirmishes, in a military manner, and not to do any more of that, banner drills and all that, which we were doing till Galwan. Challenge which China faces today from us.
Sir, and all these things were missing in 1962 during the 1962 crisis.
Yes. I will tell you briefly. You see the diplomatic and military synergy this time. In 1962, in the military realm, we were ill prepared, so to say, and there are brief accounts of the people who served there. I have not experienced that. I was not born then, but in my family, there have been IS officers who have, been talking about it, and I'm quite aware about the preparedness level and how we even didn't have basic, equipment and clothing for our troops at that time. How, on the basis of non-land movement, we had actually just short of the 62 war given military assets of low nature, like infantry contribution to Egypt that time, and how the air arm was not utilized. In fact, there are people who served then from the Air Force, the retired generals and veterans, who have lamented the non-use of Air Force at that time, which had a strategic advantage even today. And the option military was that the capability of Air Force to operate from low levels in India to take off and to be able to operate in Tibet is much more pronounced than the ability of PLF to be able to operate from mainland China or otherwise from the air bases in Tibet, and that is the case even now. The ability to target their radar stations, their installations, is much more in balance of the Indian Air Force compared to the Chinese Air Force, especially with the numbers there.
But
so
sir,
I believe the
but sir, on the other hand, China has also grown since '92, economically as well as militarily.
Yes, that's a very fair point you bring out, because one who has closely analyzed Chinese growth from at least 2003 onwards, I've been following China very in detail and reading a lot of white papers and everything else. You find China has 2025, if you see, was the era when it right now talked about the economic dependence and made in China kind of a produced in China kind of a fever. But before that, it had already embarked on a sustained economic growth with a view to serve the military mission of China. And it has taken all the advantages in the economic book or the military realm to, in a very surreptitious way and quietly at that, be able to manage its defense forces. You see Doklam.
Sir, let me pick on one of your thoughts. You talked about the economy. But for the first time since 1947, India's GDP has shrunk to 23.9% in the last quarter.
See, Danish, you don't compare an economy based on one particular year and one particular fall. You see the Indian economy from a different context, as I see it, because today in spite of being well-read on many geopolitical level, I also follow economy, and I also follow the rural sector of India. And that's where my core business currently is. And when you see that, we are an agrarian state. So now let me put it this way. The agrarian state can always feed the mouths the way it wants. And that is something which is at the backdrop to make the economic spring back at whatever rate. People are very optimistic by 2021 September. If we get the vaccine by September, we'll be able to shape our economy better. Realistic thinking would take it to 2022 maybe. But given that all economies have suffered to some degree, there is no economy in the world which has been hit by COVID which is not plunged. So we have plunged because of our backlog of the economic, whether you take the deficit, trade deficits, or whether you take our, what we owe to the world. Otherwise, the borrowings we have made.
But sir, don't you see we have a problem over here? It's if we are an agrarian society, we can see the protests presently going on in Punjab and Haryana.
See, Danish, that's not look out. I'm currently sitting in Punjab. I have met a lot of people. Politics is not my cup of tea. People can say whatever they want to say.
Fine,
people
sir.
talked a lot about.
Sir, let's go back to our topic. Let's go back to our topic, sir.
Gets the money in his bank, he will be happy finally. So you can take him to the street today.
Yes, sir. Let's go back to our topic, sir. Yeah. Sir, do you think the Indian Army and the establishment has gotten over the psychological barrier that was created because of 1962 war?
No, I would not say that, Danish, for once, because the Indian hierarchy has, in my thought, and I'm a second generation officer of that, I followed it very closely, the psyche of a soldier. And I think we've always had in our hierarchy, in the decision-making body, people who were resolute, who knew what has to be done. And we always had a few pliant people who could not put their view across, whether it was to the bureaucracy or the polity. The decision against China has been more political and bureaucratic in nature, and whereas I can say with a lot of conviction that the military authorities in 62 succumbed. Whereas today also, if the polity was weak, the military, I don't know where it would have been, whether it would be rejuvenated in the thought or not. But yes, certainly, in the current creed of the junior leadership, it has been the case for the last many decades. Eyeball to eyeball, you see Pakistan, and now you see eyeball to eyeball China. There is no relenting feeling there at that level, which is tactical and operational. The strategic domain derives its strength only from the polity and the decision makers. So if the government has made this decision this time, and the diplomatic
in other words, you are saying that political leadership in 1962 and the political leadership in 2020 are poles apart.
No. I will say there's a difference.
As far as the decision making is concerned.
Yes. Decision making certainly. Decision may have gone wrong at that time militarily. But let me tell you my thoughts on 62 also, because there's a lot of political bashing of 62 otherwise. 62 was an era when India was rising from 49 when China was recognized by us as a state and what measures we took and the benevolence we had. And we stirred up the non-aligned movement and such like peace missions as a world, trying to be a world leader. The aim was different. And then we were sort of backstabbed. So you can't politically hold a person accountable at that era for that decision making. But yes, when you see that you are a resolute political leader and a bureaucrat of that era, I'm quite sure the signs were clear pre-62. So if you negated those signs and still had that situation build up, then you are to be blamed. And that is right to apportion that blame. But the two eras are different. Now it's a resurgent India, which takes a mantle to own up to go to the UNSC as a requirement of not Indian state, but as one of the world. We represent the world community. We are a growing population. We are a growing market. We are a growing strength. So that is where we have now shifted, and a little bit of aggressive diplomacy is something which India is now tuned to do, and India must encash on that mission. So there is a definite change of geopolitical situation of 62 and 2020, and India must change those stances as we go along.
Colonel, point taken. Let's come to the.
We were absolutely that we will not join NATO. We will not go there. But now today, even if we don't join NATO or otherwise, we don't formally call for a military mission.
Fine. Point taken. Let's come to the other neighbor now.
Economic, military just have to make.
Let's come to the other neighbor now. If there is a conventional war between China and India presently, do you think the Western neighbor would open another front against India? What are the possibilities of such a scenario?
Firstly, the possibility of a full-fledged war between China and India is very low. And I don't say from an Indian perspective that we don't want to go in there. I want to say from the Chinese perspective, because the kind of backlash China will face, and it is not even sure who will be standing with India and what partnership, what military angle. So that's China's, doomsday, as you call it, if it goes there. Having said that, even if that happens, see, Pakistan is at it. What is that Pakistan has stopped? Pakistan made a state policy to bleed you through 1,000 cuts. Whatever that policy was, stated policy. Terrorism is the stated policy. It is following it. There's no change there. It is just that your ability to pick up and make it a little, calm has been there, and aggressive overtures trying to cut the economic linkages to Pakistan from whether Middle East or otherwise, to cut off the US assistance on the garb of military being diverted to terrorism has been cut. The diplomatic channels have opened up so well that we have isolated Pakistan. FATF is standing on its head by just a few votes. It is trying to manage into the grey list. So you have done enough there. And if you see Pakistan, if you see the military capability, don't misquote me on that count, but China's logistic capability to wage a war won't last with India conventionally for more than 4 days. And the kind of way it has gone into areas of Azerbaijan and other places, I don't think so. Pakistan has got anything to substantially have any dent on our operational conventional capabilities.
But then there are also reports that 20,000 Pakistani soldiers are presently stationed in northern Ladakh.
That's perfectly fine. Who is stopping them? We are monitoring. There are Chinese troops in Skardu, and let me tell you, there are a lot of analysts who are getting it a little wavery by saying two-front war, and people are starting to start up a war by tomorrow morning. China has got extreme interest, economic interest to start with, to connect to the Gwadar port as fast as possible. The CPEC goes through that. It is using Chinese troops as, when I say as labor and security guards to do the dirty job, because they're not convinced in the area of northern frontiers. There are a lot of backlash for the Chinese projects. So the army has been deployed for that reason primarily. You don't see a joint Chinese and Pakistani exercise coming in, except one video you saw. They were standing and there was a Pakistani identified as a SSG commando standing with the PLA. That could be an old exercise. But for China and Pakistan to join hands and come towards Siachen or to Ladakh or from Skardu, it's okay. It is feasible. I'm not denying that possibility. But the consequences for both the nations are going to be too rude, because Pakistan is going to be militarily devastated by the Indian might, irrespective of the fact that the Indian channels right in the winters. Now you see the two contexts. We think of a war or a skirmish with China primarily in the Ladakh region in summers, and the best reasons for Pakistan season is the winters. So you see our potential. Nobody has gauged this. I had to tell somebody this, that you can move reserves only because of this context. You have a window. So that is the way Indian armed forces will react. And now with the enhanced capabilities of surveillance and the Air Force, I think we are at a very good operational advantage. So I don't think that's going to happen very soon, Danish. But yes, the possibility always remains. We have talked about a two-front war, 2.5 front war.
And India is completely prepared for a two-front war if that happens.
Yes, see. What are you looking at the end state? The end state defines that I commit to you whether we are prepared or not. If the end state is to put China on a back foot within a given period of time on a short war or a limited skirmish, and even if it's a prolonged war with Pakistan, which Pakistan can't sustain, yes, we are ready for it. But if you're thinking of a long-drawn campaign with the two of them, militarily, conventionally, neither has got the potential to carry on. And if you're thinking of that same bleeding technique to continue from both sides, yes, that is the distinct possibility. So next 5-7 years, you will find more transgressions along the LSE. You will have a lot of interaction with the PLA. You will have Pakistan from the other side. That will continue, and that we are much more capable of doing and handling right now.
But sir, then there are some reports. India's constitutionally mandated auditor has said that 55% types of ammunition are below the minimum acceptable risk level. Then also stock of 40% of ammunition are not sufficient for even 10 days war. Even Indian Indian Air Force fleet is too shrinking. Recently, we had 5 Rafales. We will be having only 36 by 2022. Not only this, the previous former Air Chief has said that we need 42 squadrons for a two-front war. Presently, we only have 30 squadrons.
Correct, Danish. I agree with you. The Mars levels of ammunition are overall requirement. And overall requirements are based on conventional threat perceptions, Danish, and for a sustained conventional war. If you see from that angle, we have still a little way to go when we can have that kind of a capability. But now look at the last about, say, 4 or 5 weeks first, and then I will take you back to 4 or 5 months. The kind of weaponry which is now coming to the country to take care of exactly what you're saying is a huge game changer and a force multiplier. If you see specifically with the US in the last 3-4 weeks, what have we got from them? They're not asking for Boeing airplanes or F-35s or F-16s. What we are asking are for squibs, for fuses. What are these? These are exactly the same thing which you are saying about the Mars capability of ammunition.
But sir, they won't be delivered right now. They won't be delivered even next for 1 month.
No, it has. I know I can't commit to you now what has been delivered, but suffice to say, the potential you are saying of a conventional war has increased by nearly 1.5 weeks as compared to Pakistan. If you compare 4 days of Pakistan and 18 days of Indian capability, it's quite a huge difference in terms of conventional operation. So that is the current state. I will not put a number to that on an interview right like this, but much has happened in the last 5 weeks.
Fine. Sir, point taken. Sir, one more important thing. Sir, why there is no briefing as of now what's happening on the Ladakh? Why is it so?
Pardon,
There has been completely no briefing from the government side or the Ministry of Defense side on what is happening in Ladakh. Why is it so?
That's been a hot topic for last 5 months, and a lot of political backlash and people trying to steer questions, ask questions. Let me tell you 2 things. Firstly, when you see both, and people comment from the other side in Pakistan that when it is with us, you keep commenting every day. Your people talk, your chiefs talk, your CDS talks, but with China nobody
talks. Even this discussion is going on for a long on social media platforms as well.
Yes. While it is going on in social media platform, you do have a formal brief from both the MEA and the military at the given time when they have decided to give a brief. Those are official briefs. And those official briefs carry a lot of weight. Then you have, I would not say back channel, but there are people who come on television, whether from the bureaucratic angle or diplomatic angle or military angle, even veterans like us, who have a lot of knowledge, but without disclosing the specifics, we give a little bit of hint of what is happening on ground. And there are many who have got a very focused, connect to the ground as well. If you ask me about Galwan, still the world community does not know what happened pre-Galwan. So that's for another day when we meet over coffee. I can't tell you here. But that's the way it goes, Danish. And I think it's a very good idea. It's a very good idea not to talk about an ongoing operation, because we have seen in Kargil, we have seen even in the JNK sector, and those areas where you have the access of civilians closer to the LC, news travels very fast. And why it travels fast is there because right from the porters who are in the summer period doing, carrying out the logistic maintenance of the higher post, information flows. That kind of porter management and that kind of a civilian access is not there in LSC. It's totally military access, ITBP, Indian Army and the Air Force and the other agencies.
So you are telling me that they are not briefing the people or the media or the country only to keep a secrecy of the mission?
No, not at all. Not at all. See, it's not about secrecy. The Indian Armed Forces would like to maintain secrecy across the spectrum, whether it's LC or LSC. We don't like to divulge. What happens in JNK is many people get access to information which they're not supposed to have from sources which may have seen or heard something. For example, there's a porter who's gone to a post at 9,000 feet, 12,000 feet to deliver something, and there he's sipping a cup of tea, and then he heard somebody saying, somebody infiltrated. That news will travel to you the fastest. But the same access is not there in Ladakh. The day it happens, it will flow. But the political establishment or the bureaucracy is same. When have you heard people from the MEA briefing you about Pakistan on a daily affair? Never. So if I see the last 2 months, you've actually got more MEA briefing and more Army quarter briefing compared to LC actually. So if you see it from that perspective, that is the way it flows.
But during Uri and Balakot, they came out openly at exactly 11 a.m. on both the occasions.
Yes, that is when I say it is a strategic messaging. Some call it a political messaging. Both are correct. Both are correct because that message had to be given. I tell you why. You didn't want to escalate the level for the other side to do a propaganda of your aggression. So you specified we have targeted only the discerned camps. The satellite pictures, the conduct was told not only to our friends, but also to China. You found late Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, if you are aware, I'm not too sure, traveled to China to specifically give that proof, and that is how China also was quiet thereafter. So that is how it works. That's
so point taken. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's move on some other topic now. So 7 rounds of talks between military as well as the diplomatic level have completely yielded no result.
Yeah,
now there are again talks of the 8th round.
Yes. See, these rounds can keep going on. Danish, I wrote very categorically in Doklam. And if you read my Facebook accounts and follow me on social media, you will find in 2017, I laid down what is going to happen in the next few years. It has turned exactly like that. When pre-Galwan happened, there were chiefs and vice chiefs and army commanders served in Northern Command and Eastern Command who said this is a small transgression, happens every time, they will go back. I said they will not go back. And somebody was a little sarcastic with me that time, and I said, you have all your rights and whatever you want to say. So I wrote down a little bit more on the Facebook blog, and I have my YouTube going. I had my interviews with channels like yours, and I stated this is not going away. All these talks, I said high time that our diplomatic channel also participates in these talks. I've been vociferous about that. It has finally happened in the last round of talks. But to say that these talks will make a status quo ante of April happen, that will be a strategic blunder or an operational misnomer as far as military and diplomatic channels are concerned. It's not going to happen, Danish. If it happens, I will be surprised.
But they are presently occupying 1,000 square kilometers to 1,200 square kilometers, depending on the news report you believe.
See, what they are occupying, what we are occupying is fine. What is in the domain of captured Indian territory or intruded in Indian territory is currently nothing as far as we are concerned, which has happened since April. It is transgression. There has been no place in the area of differing perception in which a line has been crossed to our side and they have usurped the land. Contrary may be true if I can make that snide remark, and that is a possible deniability which my higher ups have to say that this colonel is not correct on that. It's fine. But the other way to say that there has been intrusion and capture of Indian territory is not correct, because what they are currently holding is the area which is under the domain of transgression. Either side could do. There are different perceptions which both these sides have not sat on the table and delineated. And one point I must tell you, Danish, is it's in our interest. It will be a long-drawn strategy, has been and will be, of China not to resolve the border dispute. And the only way you can resolve the border dispute with a bully like that is try to go and take on the bully at spaces where he's weak and compel that transaction to happen.
So my last question, the decision of August 5th, 2019, how much that decision has contributed to the Chinese incursion?
I missed the part before 2019. What did you say? It was just a lag there. Can you just repeat, Danish, please?
Sir, what are your opinions about the decision that was taken on August 5th, 2019? Do you think that has played a crucial part as far as this Chinese incursion is concerned?
No. I will now let me dissect that 370-35 abrogation you're talking about. Yes, publicly China has stated that as a reason to support Pakistan on a few more things, and the action this is taken. Now, see it from our perspective. I have no doubt in what I say, and I have no doubt in the books which we have seen. Kashmir is an integral part of India. There's no doubt there. POK is a part which has been taken forcibly by Pakistan. It belongs to India. We will go to the UN Charter later, what Pakistan didn't do and what has not happened. That's a different game. Now you see, Pakistan, on the basis of its being economically dependent to China and turning into a slave in the few years, has gifted a portion of that POK to China to let that corridor pass. Now, how does China legitimize that part if that part is claimed by India? So is the problem. The problem with China is that it has usurped a part of that territory which is illegal. It knows it is illegal. So this is basically a geopolitical signaling to take away the attention and talk about 370 in favor of Pakistan because it has got its own axe to grind in that small part of POK. Period. There is no other rationale, Danish, and that's where China is currently. And Indian polity and diplomatic channels are quite smart to understand that. So we are making the right, no noise kind of a thing. We know what we have to do. We will do it in the times to come.
And do you think there is going to be a war between India and China?
Which kind of war?
A conventional war. A conventional war in the present given circumstances.
We are already at a war. If you're talking about a cyber war, economic war,
no,
diplomatic
I'm talking
war,
of a conventional war under the present given circumstances.
Yes, a conventional war at the lower level. If you have troops, maybe this season, next season, because 5-7 years, I see a lot of these border interactions happening. Any interaction at the tactical level can lead to a small scale skirmish. That's a given, because you don't know how I, as a commanding officer, will react when something happens, to my troops or otherwise. That can happen from both sides. To call it a limited war at the theatrical context, it is something which I think can only happen when we upset the cart to a degree, or they upset the cart to a degree that it leads to that context. It is also contingent to how many friends we have, because China is losing friends. The
But
third
India is
dimension of
losing
having
too.
a
India has
full-scale war.
lost Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, China and Pakistan were always the adversaries. What we have done in Myanmar with that thing, we are losing them. On the same hand,
No.
India is losing as well.
No, see, there have been a political, kind of a small tribulation with Nepal. I will not say no. That era is about to, contest us in the face, as you may say. But I will not say that it will turn to the level of what we are fearing. What we are fearing. So let's leave it at that for the moment. Because
Colonel Rohit,
at the current stage.
let's end it on this point. Thank you very much for talking
Please.
to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Danish, for your time. God be kind.
Thank
Jai
you,
Hind.
sir.